Festivity periods are times when lots of safety procedures are compromised. From the homes to the roads, people are more preoccupied with the celebrations rather than take precautions. On the roads, lives are lost. Interestingly, these lost lives are avoidable if only we can take necessary safety precautions. Tonight, we'll be focusing on the importance of safety during festivities. Good evening, I am Obafemi Craig.
I am Kate Harmony. One of the agencies of the federal government charged with the responsibility for traffic management, preventing and minimizing highway accidents, and the supervision of users of such highways is the Federal Road Safety Commission, FRSC. Lamata, as the agency of the Lagos State government, has the moral responsibility to bring you information to keep you safe, particularly this festive period. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having our guest from the Federal Road Safety Commission. Good evening. Please join us on the other side of the break. This is a news update on Lamata Half Hour. The second phase of the Okokomaiko to Marina Blue Line Rail project has commenced as the first phase of the project nears completion. Piling work for the bridge that would take the rail across the lagoon has started at Ijora Olokpa area of the state. The second phase would, together with the first phase, deliver about 11 kilometers of the 27-kilometer railroad project. The rail project, which is being built by the state government, will have 13 stations and is capable of moving about 20,000 passengers per hour per direction. On completion, it will be handed over to a concessionaire who will bring in the rolling stock and run the operation for an agreed number of years. Following the successful crossing of Wemco underground drainage through the Lateef Jakonde Road into the Omole Gorge, where it would discharge, the rehabilitation and upgrade of the road has continued to progress as the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata, has affirmed that rehabilitation would meet international standard. A visit to the project site showed that a section of the road from the mobile end towards Abiodun Jagun had been stone-based, while the drainage has been installed close to Lateef Jakonde Road junction of Wemco Road. The road upgrades, which is being handled by Arab contractors, would see the road fitted with necessary road furniture such as lane markings, street lights, and other necessary traffic safety measures when completed. Also, a bicycle lane will be introduced on the road as a pilot, which will be adopted for other roads as may be appropriate within the metropolis. Members of the public are therefore urged to continue to support the contractor to ensure a speedy delivery of the project in time and on budget. And that was the news update. Up next is a discussion segment. Please join us after the break.
Basically, what Lamata does is to coordinate public transportation in Lagos State, and we came up with a transport master plan.
Developed together with the World Bank, the objective of this plan is finding long-lasting solutions for the problem of transportation in Lagos. Currently under its first steps of development, the plan has already proven itself a big success, dramatically increasing the connectivity in a city in continuous expansion and enjoying an unparalleled demographic and economic growth.
Our responsibility is to ensure that we provide the necessary infrastructure to meet the growth, to improve the quality of life, to improve the standard of living, and to make Lagos a vibrant and livable city in years to come.
Lamata, think transport.
In February 1988, the federal government created the Federal Road Safety Commission with functions generally relating to making the highways safe for motorists and road users, recommending works and devices designed to eliminate or minimize accidents on the highways, and advising the federal and state governments including the Federal Capital Territory Administration and relevant governmental agencies on the localities where such works and devices are required, and educating motorists and road users on the importance of discipline on the highways. We have with us Deputy Corps Commander and Sector Heads of Operations, Lagos State Sector Command, Federal Road Safety Commission, FRSC, Mr. Adeoye Akinola Irelewi, with us in the studio. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So with regards to crashes on our roads, could you explain why and how many of such crashes occur during annual festivities?
Well, yes. From statistics that are available to us, we have observed that during festive periods, you have a higher movement, a higher flow of traffic. And the tendency is that the more vehicles you have moving on the road, the higher the probability of a crash occurring. And that is why prior to festival periods or immediately after, you observe that there is a serious increase. There is a probability of an increase in road traffic crashes just because of the volume of traffic, the human and vehicular movement that is occurring on our roads. And that is why we, as much as possible, we lay emphasis on festive periods, prior to festive periods and after festive periods.
Are there any special traffic rules that need to be observed during these festivities?
It is not as if there is a special traffic rule or a separate traffic rule that should be observed during festive periods. But we have a situation whereby the psychology of the driver at that period is determined by so many things. Number one, a lot of people who have not, prior to that time, traveled may want to seize the opportunity of the holidays to go and do one or two things, even those that are not directly affected by the festive occasion, so to say. They may want to say, okay, because I have some days off from work, I want to travel, I want to see my family, I want to go and see the project that's on and so on and so forth. So you have the tendency for people to travel increasing. And that is why at that period, at the festive period, we want to say, look, it is not different from any other period, but you want to tailor your psychology to be able to ensure safety while you are moving. How do I mean? One, we should watch our speed, because during festive periods, the tendency is to rush. For commercial drivers, because there's a higher movement of people, they want to make more runs.
Yes.
Now,
and
you
make
have
more
been,
money.
And make more money. Under normal circumstances, you have been making Lagos about maybe 2 or 3 times a day, but because there's a heavier movement of people, you want to make 5, 6 times in a day and make more money. For those of us who are not actually commercially oriented, the tendency is that we get lost in the euphoria of the moment, in the euphoria of the period. Okay, it's a celebration time, we want to rejoice, we want to go to this place, and so on and so forth, catch the fun. The emotion of the moment, there's every tendency that a driver may lose concentration. And when he does that, it is very dangerous.
What are the road safety concerns on the use of the expressway as compared to the use of secondary roads?
Thank you very much. The expressway is expected to be a road that will have as minimal obstruction as you can. One, our major concern on the expressway is obstruction.
Obstruction in what sense?
Yes, as much as possible, we want to avoid breakdowns. Okay. And if there are breakdowns, you want to clear them as quickly as possible so that it will not lead to a gridlock. And secondly, we are concerned about the speed limits on the expressway. Unfortunately, a lot of us see the expressway as a means of a car racing.
Expressing ourselves.
Yes, expressing ourselves in speed and all that. I want to test the speed capacity of our vehicles. And that is why we always emphasize that as much as possible, people should watch their speed while on the express. Because the faster you go, the less you are in control of the vehicle. When you move at a very fast speed, there's what we call the thinking distance, and there's what we call the braking distance, and there's what we call the stopping distance. The thinking distance is the time lag between when you see an obstruction and the time it takes for you to react to that obstruction. That's the thinking distance. You see, your brain, when you see the obstruction, your brain will send a signal down to your foot to press on the brake pedal, all right, and then bring the car to a stop. That time that it takes for you to see the obstruction and to react by pressing your brake pedal is a thinking distance. Don't forget, all along the vehicle keeps moving. And it is not immediately you press the brake pedal that the vehicle comes to a stop. So the braking distance is the distance your vehicle covers between the time you press the brake pedal and the time it finally comes to a stop.
Would you say that the roadside clinics as established by the FRSC Act of 2007 is effective, and are motorists aware of their locations and the emergency numbers to call?
Yes, thank you. The roadside clinics have been very, very effective.
Okay.
Don't forget that they were set up just to render immediate medical assistance. They are not set up as hospitals in themselves. They are just to give first aid to road crash victims. And we have had several of these functioning in several areas along our major corridors all over the nation. And most of the time, the roadside clinics are established together with FRSC commands in that particular area. So wherever you see FRSC unit commands along major corridors, there is a probability that there's a roadside clinic either attached to that clinic or close to that clinic. And the assessment is very, very easy and simple. FRSC emergency number is 122. And once, yes, 122. And once that number is dialed, if there's a crash, assistance will be rendered to the victims, and if they need to be attended to medically, it will be done through the nearest FRSC roadside clinic.
What is the maximum speed limit on the highway and the secondary road? And in cases of their violations, how do you enforce that this is correct?
For the expressway, the legal speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour for private cars, while for commercial cars, it's 90 kilometers per hour on the expressway. While on the highway, that is the major roads that are not expressways, the maximum speed kilometer per hour is 80 kilometers per hour. However, there is always a speed limit that we advocate in FRSC, and that is a common sense speed limit. Because there are situations, there are conditions under which it will not be safe for a road user or a driver to go at 100 kilometers per hour. For instance, if the road condition is not good, if the weather is not good, there may be heavy rainfall, you will not advise a driver to travel at 100 kilometers per hour.
Definitely not.
Even if, yes, even if the law says that's the maximum speed limit. So we call that the common sense speed limit, in which case the driver will have to judge the situation and adjust his speed accordingly to the prevailing condition. In the area of enforcement, as much as possible, we deploy what we call the radar guns. Radar guns are speed detecting devices that we deploy, severally to try and monitor the speed of vehicles. And this is why we also advocate for the new number plates, for vehicles to be properly registered, in accordance with the new number plate. Because when they are properly registered, we will have the database of every vehicle with us. And this means that even if we don't stop that vehicle immediately the offense is committed, we can always trace the owner of the vehicle through the number plates.
Okay. So we observed that in the early hours of the morning, heavy goods vehicles ply the highways. And at that time, most of your agents or your agents are usually not on duty. How do you check them?
Thank you very much. The operations of FRSC allows our men to be on the road on enforcement between the hours of 600 hours and 1900 hours. That is 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. That is when we are on the road for enforcement. However, in every FRSA formation, we have a standby rescue team that is on duty 24/7. That is throughout the hours of the day and night, which means if a crash occurs and you call our emergency number at any time of the day, we have a rescue team that will respond to that distress call. The enforcement issue does not come in between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. for purely security reasons. One, we are not armed. And there's a limit to what you can do on the highway, in the middle of the night.
What advice do you have for motorists, especially drivers, on the safety precautions they need to observe on the highways?
They should pay attention to their driving attitude. When I say driving attitude, I mean as much as possible, drivers should exercise patience. They should not be in too much of a hurry to get to where they are going, at the risk of their lives and the lives of their passengers. If there is a speed limit put up in a particular corridor, a particular stretch of road, as much as possible, they should obey that speed limit. Secondly, at festive periods, we should pay attention to our vehicles, the condition of the vehicle in which we are using. Some people, for one reason or the other, might not have traveled throughout the year, but at that particular period, they want to travel. It's always good to let your vehicle go for a check, repair all that is needed to be repaired in the vehicle, the lights, the brakes, and all that, before you embark on that journey. And of course, it's a festive period. People want to be in a jolly mood and shark 1 or 2 bottles. The best thing is, if you drink, don't drive.
All right, it's still about a half hour. We'll be right back after the break.
I'm sure you are all aware and also preparing for the festive season ahead. With this in mind, what questions do you have for our guest?
In the case of emergency, because I've witnessed one, why is it that the vehicles do not have the appropriate first aid equipment to help the victims before they could get to the hospital for proper treatment? And in that same case, the vehicles appear, they get to their destination or they get to where the accident occurred very late.
Well, thank you. We have 2 types of operational vehicles in FRSC. We have the ambulances and we have the patrol vehicles. Depending on the nature of the crash, most of the time the patrol vehicles get there first before the ambulances. All our ambulances are well equipped to handle almost any emergency situation except surgery. And don't forget, the essence of first aid is not to give permanent treatment. It is just to sustain the victim and to prevent the injury from getting worse while the victim is being transported from the scene of the crash to for a medical help. So if you are talking about patrol vehicles, we will talk about first aid boxes, which are just to sustain the victims. But when you are talking about ambulances, they are well equipped. They are, in fact, they are of international standards. All right, and any time that an ambulance is deployed to a crash scene, you can be very sure that it's a well-equipped ambulance. Now, as to lateness in getting to the scene of the crash, Don't forget, it depends on when the distress call comes around to the base. If the distress call comes late, then the response time may be a little bit late. But if the distress call comes immediately, in fact, we have reduced our response time to crashes to less than 15 minutes.
Why is seatbelt so important?
The proper use of seatbelt in a vehicle by a driver or any occupant of the vehicle reduces the possibility of severe injuries in case of a crash by as much as 50%. In which case, if you are using seatbelt and there is a crash, your possibility of having injury is highly reduced, more than the person that is not using seatbelt. Seatbelt use or non-use in itself does not cause a crash, but it prevents injury or death in case of a crash.
Well, that's the much we can take from our studio audience on today's episode of the program. I hand you over to Kate.
Thank you, Craig. In conclusion, what are your parting words to our road users?
Thank you. I want all road users to understand one thing, that when a crash happens, it is not who is right. It is those that are left alive that we are concerned about. If we have this consciousness at the back of our minds always, we will not begin to struggle and begin to claim our rights, and we will learn to yield and give way to other road users. We will learn to consider other road users. And aside from this, it is only the living that celebrates. If we're in a festive period and we are hoping to celebrate it, then let us drive to stay alive. Let us use the road in a very safe way. Observe the rules and regulations of the road, obey the speed limit, and give consideration to other road users.
Well, we have learned a lot from this discussion. Thank you for being a part of this program.
Thank you.
We'll take a break now, and when we return, the show continues. Stay with us.
Ìmọ̀ràn tí àlejò wa fún wa lórí ètò tòní ni wípé ẹni tó bá wà láàyè ló ń yọ ayọ̀ ọdún o. Wọ́n sọ fún wa wípé ká kíyèsára, ká sì ṣe jẹ́jẹ́, ká sì pa òfin mọ́.
My people, na person wey dey alive na im dey do jollyment. So as you dey drive motor for this season, make you take am jeje and make you obey traffic law. To find out more about us, you can use the details now appearing on your screen. Would love to hear from you.
Every member of our audience goes home with a loaded Lagos Connect card. Till next week.
Lamata.
Think Transport! Lagos, my home. With Lamata, Lagos is changing for the best. BRT lanes, modern rail lines, pedestrian